And there was an Al Green moment when we were doing Arms Too Short to Box with God, and we were on Broadway. But I'm going home to see my sister who's not well, who's dying of cancer. I don't care about your sister. Why do you want to say that?
Did y'all really have beef with the Supremes?
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't expect it like that.
It wasn't the Supremes, it was Diana and myself.
I have so many funny moments with certain people in this industry.
Did you know Patti LaBelle couldn't stand Jackie Wilson? Well, Jackie was so wildly inappropriate towards Patti that he tried to sexually assault her. But Wilson wasn't the only industry heavyweight she had issues with, from clashing with Diana Ross over wearing the same outfits with her.
Or one of those cheap stores and buy gold outfits. And so the next day, the day we wore them, the next day, the Supremes had on the same gold things. So
they were biting your style.
They were biting my style.
To her feud with James Brown over dropping off the curtain on her group during an on-stage performance.
And we got standing ovations for the whole time we were on. And so James said to the curtain guy, shut the curtain on those witches with a beat. I said, whoa!
These music legends have found themselves on Patti's bad side. Let's get into it. Starting with Jackie Wilson. Patti LaBelle is one of the greatest singers of all time. She has been in the music business for over 50 years. People love her voice, her energy, and her big personality. She is known as a legend and a diva. But like everyone, she has had tough moments in her life. One of the worst was when another famous singer, Jackie Wilson, tried to take advantage of her. This happened in the early 1960s when Patti was part of a group called Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells. They were known for their exciting performances, but they did not have many hit songs. Later, in the 1970s, they became famous as the group LaBelle, with their hit song Lady Marmalade. But back in the 60s, they were still trying to make it big. One night, Patti and her group were performing at a theater in Brooklyn. Jackie Wilson, a famous singer at the time, was also on the show. He was known as Mr. Excitement because of his amazing dance moves and powerful voice. Women loved him. He could move like James Brown and sing like Sam Cooke. He was a star, and Patti admired him like many others did. After the show, Patti was backstage. She never expected what happened next. Jackie Wilson suddenly grabbed her and started kissing her neck. She could smell alcohol on his breath. She tried to push him away, but he was too strong. Then, one of his friends grabbed her too and started dragging her backwards. She was scared and fought back, but she was small compared to them. She was only 5 feet 3 inches tall, and Jackie's friend was much bigger. He pulled her towards a room. She heard a door close behind them. That sound made her even more afraid. She thought she was trapped. Jackie Wilson was ready to hurt her, and she felt helpless. But then she remembered something. If she couldn't fight physically, she could use her voice. Patti started screaming as loud as she could. She had a powerful voice, and now she used it to save herself. She screamed and screamed, hoping someone would hear. It worked. Jackie and his friend suddenly stopped. Maybe they were scared someone would come. They let her go, and she ran as fast as she could. She ran until she found her group members, Sarah and Nona. They had been looking for her. She told them what happened, but made them promise not to tell anyone. She was afraid people wouldn't believe her. Jackie Wilson was a huge star. People thought he could get any woman he wanted. They might say she was lying, or that she wanted to be with him. Patti didn't want to deal with all that, so she stayed quiet. After that night, Patti saw Jackie Wilson a few more times at different shows, but she never spoke to him again. She couldn't even look at him. For years, she hated him for what he did. She didn't understand why a man who was loved by so many would try to hurt her. She carried that pain for a long time. Years later, in 1975, something happened to Jackie Wilson. He was performing on stage when he suddenly had a heart attack. He collapsed while singing his hit song, Lonely Teardrops.
My heart is crying, crying, lonely.
After that, he was in a coma for many years. He stayed in hospitals and never fully recovered. In 1984, Jackie Wilson passed away. Later in life, she learned the power of forgiveness. But for a long time, she couldn't forgive Jackie Wilson for what he tried to do. Next is Diana Ross.
Ross wanted Cindy Birdsong to replace Florence Ballard, so Cindy left us just standing one night, waiting for her to come out and play. And Miss Thing was in Detroit with the Supremes. I said, that's cute.
For Patti LaBelle and Diana Ross, well, let's just say, for many years, they didn't get along. Their problems started a long time ago when both were part of singing groups before they became solo artists. Patti LaBelle says the drama started because Diana Ross copied her style. At the time, Patti was part of a group, and they performed at places like the Apollo Theater. They didn't make much money, so they had to buy cheap outfits from stores like Walmart or Walgreens. But every time Patti's group wore something new, the Supremes would wear the same thing the next day. It made Patti upset because she felt like Diana and her group were copying them.
One of those cheap stores and buy gold outfits. And so the next day, the day we wore them, the next day, the Supremes had on the same gold things. So
They were biting your style.
they were biting my style.
Patti said it wasn't just about the outfits, it was about respect. Her group worked hard to find clothes they could afford, and then the Supremes, who had more money, would wear the same thing. It felt unfair to Patti, especially since her group didn't have many options. They couldn't afford fancy outfits, so when they spent money on something special, they wanted to stand out. But every time they tried to be different, the Supremes followed. Patti thought it wasn't right, and that's when the tension between her and Diana started. Things got even worse when one of Patti's group members, Cindy Birdsong, left to join the Supremes. Patti and her group were in Cleveland, about to perform, when they realized Cindy was gone. They later found out she had secretly been rehearsing with the Supremes for months. She left without telling them, and it hurt Patti and the others. It wasn't just about losing a member, it was about trust. Patti felt betrayed because she had no idea Cindy was planning to leave.
So Cindy left us just standing one night, waiting for her to come out and play. And Miss Thing was in Detroit with the Supremes. I said,
Even though Patti was upset, she understood why Cindy left. The Supremes were more famous and made more money, so it was a big opportunity for her. But the way it happened wasn't right. Patti didn't like that Cindy left at the last minute, especially when they were about to go on stage. It made things worse between her and Diana. It wasn't just about clothes anymore. It was personal. For years, Patti and Diana didn't talk. There was too much bad blood between them. Every time they were in the same place, they avoided each other. The tension was strong, and it seemed like they would never be friends. But everything changed when they both attended Oprah Winfrey's Legend Ball. They ended up sitting at the same table, and Patti decided it was time to let go of the past. She spoke to Diana, and they were finally able to move forward.
We had issues up until we did the Legends Ball. Oprah Winfrey's Legend Ball.
That's right.
And Diana and I were at the same table. Thank God we made up.
Since then, Patti and Diana have been on good terms. The past is behind them, and they no longer have any bad feelings. Patti realized that holding a grudge wasn't worth it. Even though they had problems in the past, they were both legends in music, and it was better to focus on the good. Now, they respect each other and are friendly whenever they meet. The next person had a complicated relationship with Patti.
And there was an incident with my favorite man, James Brown, at the Apollo Theater. We were the opening act, and he had to follow. And we were singing Danny Boy and You'll Never Walk Alone.
LaBelle recently shared some stories about people who were not always kind. She spoke about different men in the industry, including the famous James Brown. She talked to Newsweek about her experiences with him. Patti first met James Brown in the 1960s. Back then, she was performing with her group, the Bluebells. They often opened for James Brown at the Apollo Theater. James was a big fan of their performances. Patti would sing her heart out, take off her shoes and get the crowd excited. People would scream and cheer so loudly that James would joke backstage, telling them to get her off the stage so he could perform. He always wanted to be the star of the show, especially when the audience was full of energy, but it was all in good fun. After the show, he would tell Patti how amazing she was and encourage her to keep going. One time, there was an incident at the Apollo Theater. Patti and her group were singing powerful songs like Danny Boy and You'll Never Walk Alone. The audience loved them, giving them standing ovations. James Brown, who had to perform after them, wasn't happy about it. He told the stage crew to close the curtains on Patti and her group. He called them a rude name, which shocked Patti. It was a moment of tension, but things later changed.
We got standing ovations for the whole time we were on. And so James said to the curtain guy, shut the curtain on those witches with a beat. I said, whoa!
After getting over that situation, James Brown showed his respect for Patti. He told her that she always looked well-dressed and had great style.
Later, after James and I got over that, he said, Miss LaBelle, you know what? You're so fabulous. And I think you should do something for the young girls. I said, like what? He said, start a culture class.
He even suggested that she should start a class to teach young girls how to present themselves with style and confidence.
He said, because you always have your nails done, your hair done, and you're always wearing the right clothes. And what a compliment. So from a downer to an upper.
For Patti, that moment turned a bad situation into something positive. She realized that sometimes people don't dislike her. They just don't understand her. The last time Patti saw James Brown, he had lost a lot of weight, but still looked good. What she didn't know was that this would be the last time she would ever see him. Just 4 weeks later, James Brown passed away. Looking back, Patti felt grateful that she got to speak with him one last time. He seemed at peace, which felt strange to think about now. Next up is Al Green and Wilson Pickett.
So I recorded with Wilson Pickett, 6, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. That song, right? With Sarah Dash and Nona Hendrix. And at the very end, I did something that he didn't like very much.
For Patti, two moments that stood out were with Wilson Pickett and Al Green. When Patti recorded the song 6, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9 with Wilson Pickett, she was singing backup with Sarah Dash and Nona Hendrix. At the end of the song, she added a little extra. She sang, "Why Don't You Call Him?" It was just a small thing, but Wilson Pickett did not like it at all. He got so mad that he said, "If I had a gun, I would shoot you." That shocked Patti. She couldn't believe he got that upset over one line in the song. But back then, things were different.
I went off a background and went, "Why don't you call him?" And when I sang that part, he was so mad at me. He said, "If I had a gun, I would shoot you." I said, "Really?"
People got angry fast. She wrote about it in her book because she wanted to tell the truth.
No! Back in the day stuff. It's real because it's in my book. So nobody's going to beat me up for telling the truth.
Another bad moment happened on Broadway when she was in Your Arms Are Too Short to Box with God. During that time, Patti's sister Barbara was very sick with cancer. One day, there were two shows, a matinee in the afternoon and another at night. Patti asked to miss the afternoon show so she could visit her sister. The producer, Burnett Carroll, said it was fine, but Al Green had a big problem with it.
And there was an Al Green moment when we were doing Arms Too Short to Box with God, and we were on Broadway. I'm going home to see my sister who's not well, who's dying of cancer. I don't care about your sister. Why do you want to say that?
Al Green got upset and said, "If she's going home, I'm going home too." That made things ugly. Patti explained that she was leaving to see her dying sister, but Al didn't care. He said, "I don't care about your sister." That was too much. Patti got so angry that she grabbed a glass, ready to throw it at him. Luckily, her friend Norma stopped her. Years later, Al Green apologized. Patti has been through a lot in her life, but she still found joy. She had bad moments, but she also had many good ones. That's just how life is. The next person Patti had issue with was someone she refused to mention her name.
And since then, he's apologized. But I have so many funny moments with certain people in this industry.
But she shared a story about a famous singer who was rude to her during the Live Aid concert. She didn't say the woman's name, but when she did an impersonation, people guessed it might have been Tina Turner. Patti said she was at the event with her son, Zuri, who was about 8 years old at the time. He got to meet a lot of famous people, and it was a special moment for both of them. One of the people there was Mick Jagger, the lead singer of the Rolling Stones. Patti introduced her son to Mick, and Mick was very happy, saying, "Oh, you're Patti's son." But then something happened that she did not expect. There was a female singer standing with Mick Jagger. Patti went to hug her and introduce Zuri, but the woman refused to hug her back. Instead, she said, "Oh no, darling, you're moist." Patti was shocked. She had just finished performing and was sweaty from being on stage. She couldn't believe that someone would reject her hug just because of that. Patti was hurt by the comment and never spoke to the woman again. She didn't say her name, but she made it clear that the woman knew who she was. Patti said she has many stories about the music industry, some good and some bad. Over time, she has learned to move on from bad experiences, but the most recent one got her heartbroken. I am talking about her portrayal in Luther Vandross's documentary.
CNN, they aired this documentary on Luther on New Year's Day, and Patti LaBelle was featured in the documentary.
Patti LaBelle was very upset after a new documentary about her dear friend made her look like a bad person.
Patti LaBelle was featured in the documentary because she and Luther were really good friends, but she wasn't portrayed in the documentary like she would have wanted to be.
I mean, Patti and Luther were close for many years. She was not just his friend, but also helped take care of him when he was sick. She was even close with his family. But in the CNN documentary, Luther, Never Too Much, which aired on New Year's Day, she was shown in a way that made her look like she was gossiping about him.
So it was kind of how they edited it. Like, it was like they implied that she was the one who put out, basically she was out on her friend.
So Patti had done an hour-long interview for the documentary, sharing her memories of Luther. She welcomed the filmmakers into her home, hoping to celebrate her friend's life. But in the final version of the film, her interview was completely removed. This happened because she refused to sign release forms when the producers didn't let her see the final cut before it aired. She wanted to make sure her words were used the right way, but they did not agree. Instead, the documentary used a short clip from 2017 where Patti talked about Luther's private life on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen.
Phil appeared in the documentary, but it was a clip from a 2017 interview with Andy Cohen that she did.
Did he struggle with the idea of coming out?
We talked about it. It was basically he did not want his mother to be, although she might have known.
In that interview, Andy Cohen asked Patti if Luther struggled with coming out as gay. Patti answered honestly, saying that they had talked about it and that Luther didn't want to make it public because he didn't want to upset his mother. She believed his mother already knew, but Luther never wanted to officially say it. That short clip was used in the documentary to make it seem like Patti betrayed Luther by talking about his private life. To make things worse, the documentary showed another interview with singer Richard Marx, who said he was angry that some of Luther's friends had talked about his personal life. Right after that, the film showed Patti's 2017 interview, making it seem like she was one of those people. Many of Patti's supporters felt this was unfair and made her look like she was speaking against Luther when, in reality, she had loved and supported him until the very end.
And had Richard Marx say, his friends, I didn't like how some of his people who claimed to be his friends.
Patti had always been there for Luther. After he suffered a stroke, she hired people to take care of him, sent him food, and helped his family. She even performed at his funeral in 2005. But the documentary didn't focus on her kindness. Instead, it only showed the old interview where she spoke about his struggles with coming out. People who watched the film at the Tribeca Film Festival even booed when they saw that part, thinking she had done something wrong. What hurt Patti even more was that the documentary left out the important role she played in Luther's career. When he was in high school, Luther was a huge fan of Patti and even started her first fan club. He went to watch her perform many times at the Apollo Theater and was inspired by her music, but none of this was shown in the film. Now let's change gears and talk about the other controversies she faced. For most of her career, she avoided legal trouble and stayed away from scandals.
But I've had so many funny moments with certain people in this industry.
However, in the 21st century, things changed. Patti LaBelle found herself facing multiple lawsuits. Some people think she has become more like a true diva, while others believe she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Whatever the reason, she has had to deal with legal issues in recent years. For many years, there were rumors that Patti LaBelle and Aretha Franklin were enemies. People loved the idea of a battle between the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, and the Godmother of Soul, Patti LaBelle. The media loved to spread gossip about them, but the truth is, both singers denied having any problems with each other. When Aretha Franklin passed away in 2018, it was reported that she wanted Patti LaBelle to sing at her memorial service. This showed that they had no real feud and respected each other as artists and friends. Even though the rumors about Aretha Franklin were false, Patti LaBelle has been inside a courtroom several times. One of the most serious cases happened in 2008. A woman accused LaBelle of attacking her and her 18-month-old child in a hotel lobby in Manhattan. The woman claimed that LaBelle screamed at her, cursed at her, threw water on her, and tried to hit her. LaBelle and her team denied everything. However, in 2010, the case was settled, and LaBelle paid $100,000 to the woman. Another lawsuit happened in 2011. This time, it was about LaBelle's security team. A young man who was a cadet at West Point Military Academy walked too close to LaBelle's limousine.
Patti LaBelle. Her bodyguards are accused of attacking a West Point cadet at the Houston airport. Now, the victim claims he was merely standing near LaBelle's luggage when one of her bodyguards punched him.
LaBelle's security guards attacked him, and he suffered a concussion. The cadet and his family took the case to court. At first, LaBelle was part of the lawsuit, but later she was removed from the case. In 2014, a jury decided that her security guards were not guilty.
Punched him, but now LaBelle's bodyguards say it was the cadet who provoked the attack, and it was all caught on surveillance.
Even though LaBelle was not directly responsible, this case added to the list of legal troubles connected to her name. Besides her legal troubles, Patti LaBelle has also faced deep personal pain. She lost many close family members over the years. The most heartbreaking losses were her 3 sisters. All of them died from cancer before reaching the age of 50.
The number one cancer women face is breast cancer. While advances have been made in prevention, early diagnosis, and treatment through research, Black women have a 41% higher rate of death from breast cancer.
Her eldest sister, Vivian, passed away at 43 from lung cancer. Her second sister, Barbara, was also a singer and a member of Patti's first music group. She died of colon cancer at the age of 40. Her youngest sister, Jacqueline, passed away from brain cancer when she was 43. Out of all these losses, the death of her youngest sister was the hardest for LaBelle. The day before Jacqueline passed away, she asked Patti to make her an egg sandwich. Patti said she would make it the next day. Sadly, Jacqueline died before Patti could bring her the sandwich. This memory has haunted LaBelle for years. She has said that she still feels guilty about not making that simple meal for her sister.
My sister Jackie, who died of cancer, and I was so busy touring, I would come back and she would ask me to do things for her. I was so tired. One day she asked for a sandwich and I couldn't make it. The next day she died.
As if losing her sisters was not painful enough, Patti LaBelle also lost both of her parents. Her father died from Alzheimer's disease, and her mother passed away due to diabetes. These losses made her realize how fragile life is. She often speaks about how much she misses her family and wishes they could have seen more of her success. LaBelle's mother's death was especially hard because it made her aware of her own health risks. In 1995, LaBelle was performing in New York when she suddenly passed out on stage. When she woke up, doctors told her she had type 2 diabetes. At first, she was very angry. She did not want to believe that she had the disease. But after thinking about how diabetes had taken the lives of her mother, aunt, and grandmother, she decided to take control of her health. Instead of letting diabetes ruin her life, LaBelle made big changes. She started exercising regularly with a personal trainer. She also changed her diet completely. LaBelle also became a strong voice for diabetes awareness. She worked with the American Diabetes Association and became a spokesperson for the Glucerna Diabetes Freedom Campaign. She wanted to help others learn how to manage their health. She often tells people that even though she has diabetes, she is still living her best life.